right, playoff football, and the Miami Dolphins name hasn't been attached together in a long, long time. And even longer than that is Bills and Dolphins in the playoffs. Growing up, it was big deal. Bills and Dolphins, that was some of the prime of my early memories of football. And I'm really looking forward to it. You know, will the Dolphins show up in Buffalo against, second best team in the AFC East division leaders, and can they compete and even more so defeat the Bills? Well, I'm going to get into the matchups. Before I get into all that stuff, clearly they can. Now, can and will is a big road difference, but this is playoff football, and the intensity that happens in a regular season game is unbelievable. It's so hard to understand the violence and the intensity with human bodies batter themselves together with total abandon. But then you add that and multiply that when you get into the postseason. It becomes some other creature. And things can turn on a dime. Now, the Dolphins, they have a load of injuries, especially on the offensive line, at quarterback, and that's really going to hinder them because when you look at the defeat we gave the Bills in week 1, we had a pretty complete roster. The Bills were really beat up in the secondary, and they were in the volcano. And then in the second game, we were pretty complete there as well. And we were able to push it to the edge. The snow came, and that kind of really flipped it on its head. There'll be no snow this week. This will be around 28, 30 degrees, totally playable weather, and actually really conducive for the players because it will keep them nice and cool. So the environment won't get involved on either side. It's going to be a passing element. The game's going to be, looks like, pretty pristine to pass the football. And the Dolphins are coming in a little gimpy. But, I've been meaning to get my positive film out on the Miami Dolphins, but I've been kind of derailed trying to keep the realistic train going, and it took me a little bit longer to get to it than I thought. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing, or maybe today, it depends on when this comes out, I'm going to be doing a lot of film on the Dolphins front, and they are dangerous. And that dangerous portion of that front is going to allow them the opportunity. Remember, the Jets are an incomplete offense as well, and they were able to kind of take the Bills to the edge, and it might be the same way. Now, there's a little bit difference, and I'll get into that, but this is likely going to be a game for a bit. I do not see the Dolphins blowing out the Bills, and I don't see the Bills blowing out the Dolphins, at least in the early portion. So I'm going to get into it here. Bills fans, I'm going to try to cover your team fairly, as I've always done. Dolphin fans, I'm just going to do the same thing to you, because to me, that's really what it's about, getting good information. And this is going to be hopefully a classic game, however it turns out. Hopefully both sides come out happy somehow, where one wins and the other one has a real nice fight in it. So I want to thank you for stopping by. I appreciate everything you guys do, Bills fans, Dolphin fans, and the rest. You guys make this channel go. I want to give you a shout out, and a shout out to Ace Per Head, my sponsor, because without you and without them, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so injuries. Going to get into it real quick. Bills, as terrible as that Hamlin injury was, and the fallout and all that, the Bills' body was really allowed, the team itself, not the poor kid, but the team itself got a little bit of respite. Now, they had a tough game last week, a real tough game against the Patriots, but they're coming in relatively healthy. Now, Jordan Phillips hasn't practiced for 2 days, and he's a big piece of the puzzle, and he would be a bigger missing piece if he doesn't show, if it were not for this major issue on the Dolphins front of several offensive linemen not being available. I'll get into that in a second. But other than that, it's really Isaiah McKenzie, Poyer's got the gimpy knee, but he's been battling that for a while. So that's just kind of status quo for a tough guy football player like him at this stage of the game. And McKenzie might not play because he went from limited to not available. And then they signed Cole Beasley, which is kind of interesting. And so he's an important part. McKenzie really hurts the Dolphins, but I think so far they're on the winning edge as far as injuries. Now the Dolphins, Teron Armstead, he's wrecked. He's missed 2 games. He could come in tomorrow and play. And even if he played at 60%, sadly enough, that would be a huge win for them. But I don't even know if that's going to happen. Chubb, he didn't practice and he's limited. He's going to play again, but you could see last week he just doesn't have the full toolkit. But he will be an important piece, but it's a loaded group, so it's not that detrimental. I'd rather have Chubb out and Teron in, but I don't get to control that. Now, Eichenberg, my deal with him, he's probably going to be out. It's a hand this time, not a knee, second injury. Melvin Ingram, he's fine. Kendall Lamb, he's an offensive tackle we signed, and he's not playing. He played about 10 snaps. Raheem Mostert is a very important piece. He was a guy that really brought so many big plays to us, especially in that Bills game. And it looks like with the broken thumb, he's not going to be out. He's not going to be able to run with the broken thumb. That thing's going to get re-injured. He's not going to be able to hold on the football, and that's a big loss for us. But also Brandon Shell. If we want to be in this game, we're going to need to run the football. And if Teron's not in and Shell's not in, it's going to put a huge stress on this offensive line. I'll get into that. Tua is obviously not going to be out, and there's a lot of limited, but I'm not going to get into it. But ultimately, the trench front of the Miami Dolphins offensive line is on the verge of being in utter collapse. I still think even with this, there's certain ways they can mitigate that through play calling, design, and patience to allow the defense to kind of hold them into the game. It's going to take a lot. It's going to be a long shot, but it seems like to me that's the only way it can happen. So let's get into Dolphins offense. We'll start with that versus the Bills defense. Now Hamlin, kid really stepped up in a big way for Hyde. I'm just happy the kid's alive. Sad to say, isn't it? Happy the kid's alive. And it's almost like a miracle. My friend who's a Bills fan said there was all kind of trees going on with 3 interceptions by the Bills, 3 touchdowns by Allen, and there was a bunch of other threes, which was really kind of amazing. I don't know, but just it really adds to a storybook element in the game. But he's not going to be in, and Marlowe's going to be in, and he's kind of like a young guy, and that could be a little bit of a hole. You obviously got Poyer on the other side, the banged up knee, still a stud. And the corners, Trey White, he's getting his footing, and you see him make some plays, and you see him miss some, but it was a long time off. It's going to take a little while for him to get back in a groove. So I gave him a yellow, along with Jackson. Obviously, Johnson's really good at the nickel. This team's going to play the nickel all day. That's what they did the last time, and I expect them to do it again this time. So you could see Klein up there, but you're really not going to see him too much. He's going to be a special teamer. So there are going to be opportunities to take advantage with Hamlin out. And with the talent of Waddle and Hill, you see I get the stars over there. They're unbelievable. They could do so much, and the leverage they create has really allowed this offensive line to, a little sketchy, to do some stuff that really they shouldn't be able to do. It's not for the rare combination of these ultimate talents. So I do think they do have an advantage over this secondary. But some of the stuff we like to do is over the middle, and Milano is the best linebacker in the AFC East, and he shuts some stuff down. This linebacking group is excellent. A cut above Dolphins, and it's going to be a real important factor. Now, what we like to do is run a lot of gap runs. We like to put guys in motion and flood an area where we attack. It's called gap running. Now, it really works well against smaller linebacking groups. But Edmonds is a big, strong guy, and he kind of can limit that, especially when you're as hurt as we are on the offensive line. And this is going to force us more into zone blocking and less into gap blocking. And I think the gap blocking is really important for us to have that balance between zone and gap. So we're going to see how that plays out. But Armstead, like you see at the red circle, square, he's going to be out. Eichenberg's going to be out. Shell's probably going to be out. The knee looked pretty bad. And we're going to have to choose from Empey, Dieter, and Greg Little. And Greg Little is terrible, terrible. And Dieter is terrible, terrible. He cannot run block. He's not a bad pass blocker, probably a better center pass blocker than guard because he has no strength or physical tools. And he could find himself in big trouble against guys like Oliver and Jones. I put Rousseau up there. Obviously, he's the preeminent guy on defense right now for you guys. You could say Milano, but that front pressure means so much. Lawson, I put the yellow box around. He's struggling. He's okay. You have some other guys in the background that are okay, but we have Hunt and Williams that I like inside, and that's really going to be important for our zone blocking, not going to help us so much in that gap blocking, and we might be able to find a little hay there. Daquan Jones is so good. He's a big, big boy, and you guys have a really strong edge on that line versus line stuff, versus defensive line versus offensive line. Unless we get some miracle return of Tehran or Shell. Gesicki, he can't pass block, run block, won't really pass block too well. Smythe's okay. We got Hunt along, he's okay. So there's going to be a lot of issues for us to run the football. But here's the thing. We need to run the football anyway and keep you guys honest. Because while we have these deficiencies, that nickel should allow us some movement. We've got to be more patient than we've ever been to allow our defense the opportunity to create a big play. And that's the thing. Allen eventually is going to make his hay. He's going to break a big run. He's going to throw a big pass. But we're going to have to offset that somehow through patience, get maybe some field goals, wait for a big play to break, but give it time that you don't blow the doors open and then our defense can't play that major role. Thompson, I like his movement. I'm hoping he can scramble and pick up some yards and maybe buy some times on a run. He's a little gimpy, too, at the ankle. Wilson Jr. is not bad. He's okay if the holes are there. He needs yards before contact or else he's like average. So that's really what it looks like on our offense. The defense of the Bills has an edge. It does. But with Waddle and Hill, you never know because this is going to be a clear day. One wrong step, like you saw last time with Poyer creeping up and Waddle took it for the touchdown, it could play huge. It could play very, very huge, and we're going to need it. So let's check over to the other side of the ball. Bills offense versus the Dolphins defense. And right away, you're going to see two stars on our defensive front. Our defensive front is the best group on both sides of the field. This is the most potent unit on both teams. There's some slight problems to that. While they are the most potent, they still don't get enough pressure because the secondary has a tendency to break down. And it's going to be exasperated with Allen's movement skills, his ability to break tackles. But still, this is where, if you're a Dolphins fan, you want to hold your hat. You want to see production. You can get a sack. You can get a fumble. And that could turn the game on its head. And that's really the only way I see it happening, is that this secondary gets maybe a hit quarterback and they're able to pick off the interception because the ball flies, or they get a sack fumble or a key down, you get a stop, because they can dominate your front. And one of the ways the Bills have been really growing was with their run attack. I don't see that running attack having the same potency. Now, again, like the Dolphins, the Bills have to run the football to be patient. In the first meeting, they really didn't run the football, and it was all on Allen, and he got beat up. One of the keys for the Bills is not just to win this game, but to be in a sound mind and body for the next game. And while you might be able to do Magic Allen, he's going to get hit a lot. That's why they need to run the football, to be patient and have a patience game on their own. But it's going to be very, very tough. You got Chubb, who's dinged up but still good. You watch him play, he's still a quality player. Phillips, He won't be playing inside too much, though. Sometimes on nickel, he'll play the outside. He has grown in tremendous ways, and this guy could turn out to be a super stud, and he's been burgeoning on that. And he's one of the guys that can track down Allen and take him down. Wilkins, one of the best D tackles in the league. Not so much a pass rusher, but he can control the line of scrimmage. Then you got Ingram. He's the old man. He can come in, and he still makes hay. And you see up the top, I got Sealer, Davis, and I didn't put Van Ginkel in there, which I should. But Davis is a big guy who sucks up bodies. Sealer is a serious business. He's one-gap shooter and also two-gap. And he's going to put a lot of problems with you guys along with Van Ginkel. If you look at the Bills' offensive line, Dawkins is a big piece. He's going to be able to slow that down a little bit and play, at least take one guy on that side and pretty much negate him for a lot of the game. But it's the rest of the offensive line that's a big concern, considering the Dolphins are deep and talented. And this is going to be the absolute key to the game. Allen can't get hit too often. He can't get hit too quickly. And he can't have to force the game because he makes mistakes sometimes when that happens. And it's going to take a very patient game. And really, the Dolphins are only chances through there. Now, Knox, I like Knox. He can kind of block, chip, and go. He can work on the play action. The last game we played, he was a big, big factor. I think a stat I found out last week when you guys played the Patriots and the Bills played the Patriots, they're 16-1 when he scores a touchdown. So you might want to watch that if you're a Dolphins or Bills fan. And then, obviously, Singletary and Cook. Didn't put Cook in there. Cook is dangerous. And Singletary is that steady Eddie guy with a little bit of breakability, but Cook is looking like he's on a little bit different level, but we stopped the run really well. But again, it comes to all-world Allen. And then you got Diggs. Diggs on X is going to be feasting. He's going to feast on X. The only thing is X can bait and maybe make that big interception. But consistency is probably not going to be there. He was gobbled up last week by Wilson by the Jets. And then on the other side, the nickel is shot with Crossan. You guys are going to come out with three wide receivers a lot. I like Kohu. I think he's physical. He can come up and stop some of these plays. Maybe even Allen booting. He's physical. He can make some nice pop hits. Kind of struggles in the mid to late clock. And that, with Allen's movement skills, could be a problem. Davis has struggled. He's dropped a lot of balls, but he also makes some big, big plays. And that's all it's going to take. A couple of big plays are going to turn this game. And I don't know if the Dolphins are going to be able to stop it. Rowe is a problem. Roberts, he's really good in the run game, but he's going to be a big liability in this game because that's not going to be a major issue. I like Baker. Baker was a kind of a guy I thought we need to start getting rid of, but really stepped up. His blitzing and ability to chase down maybe Allen, although he overshoots, but the last couple of weeks, he's really dialed in. That's going to be another key for my Dolphin fans and maybe Bills fans. And then Holland over the top. He can limit things. He's not having as good a year as year one. It's a little bit of a sophomore slump, but you guys like the big plays, and that's where he comes in. And he has been pretty good at stopping that. So it'll be very interesting to see how he plays. Overall, Dolphins do have an early edge. They're going to make it tough early. It's going to take a little bit of a feel-out phase, and I want to see if Dorsey can be patient. I want to see if McDaniel can be patient. I expect this to be a close game, at least into the early third, and it could start breaking it out earlier if coaches aren't patient and they start getting nervous, going for it on the fourth down when it's crazy, or just going pass. So that's going to be a real key for me. This Dolphins defensive line and Allen, along with Diggs and Howard and Hill, that's going to be a major, major deal. Poyer and Holland too. So, Milano too. So those are the guys. That's it, I think. Those are the guys I really focus on. I want to believe my Dolphins are going to put a good show. I don't know, though. I don't know. McDaniel has grown a little bit, but a little impatient. And this offensive line, if it's going in gutted, it could be a scary situation. So that's how I see it. I think the Bills likely will win by 10. It's going to take something big for my Dolphins to pull it off. If my Dolphins can at least keep it in the 10-6 range, or at least keep it tight into that early fourth, late third, I would consider it a major moral victory, because this team is so beat up on key areas, and this is a good team in a playoff game in their house. So Bills fans, Dolphins fans, enjoy the game. We haven't seen this since the 90s, and it's nice to have a little bit of nostalgia if you've been around that long. So anyway, get ready for the big game. We're really playing with house money, Dolphins fans. So enjoy. Curtis saying, catch you next time. Be well. Go Phins. Sorry, Bills fans. Go Phins. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with AceBread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.